Today we're going to be talking about the third video that Paige Hanna released, talking about her experience with Jodi Hildebrandt and Ruby Franke. I've been covering these videos as she's been releasing them in parts because it's difficult for her to relive these situations and experiences that she had with Ruby Franke and Jodi Hildebrandt. But just to recap, she's posting these videos on the YouTube channel Under the Rug, and her last video ended with her saying that she was going to talk about the experience she had when Jodi Hildebrandt came to her house to stay, and we're going to be taking a look at that video today. Watching these videos is important because it's good to know all sides of the story. That way you can form a better picture of exactly what happened. Now, we're never really going to know the full truth because we were never there, but this does help. And as always, if you want to watch this video or the other videos that she has uploaded on that channel, I'll have her YouTube channel down in the description down below. And if you would like to see where I've talked more about these other videos that she's posted, I have those on my YouTube channel as well as a lot of other videos on the whole 8-passenger situation, everything from Kevin Franke, the Jodi Hildebrandt getting arrested, Ruby getting arrested, and so on. But with that said, we're going to go through and watch this video and talk about certain key points in it. She starts out the video by saying that she's doing this because she's trying to help prevent people from being in these type of situations, or help people that could be in these type of situations by helping them see the red flags and what to look out for. And then she goes on to talk about how Jodi ended up at her house in the first place. Now, for those of you that don't know, Jodi said that she was kidnapped and they took her keys away and she was forced to stay at Paige Hanna's house. And then another story was that Jodi tried to seduce Paige's husband and she was kicked out. This is how Paige describes how it happened.
Johnny and I, my husband, received a phone call that Jodi needed help. And this phone call came from a person that I had never met before. I don't believe I'd ever even spoken to her on the phone. And she was a dear friend of Jodi's, living in a different country, thousands of miles away, who had known her for, I don't know, 20 or 30 years. This friend had Jodi on the line also and expressed how concerned she was that Jodi was not doing well. And my husband and I didn't understand what does that mean, not doing well. And she said she's suicidal. Now, Johnny and I had some experience previously with a very close relation who had been suicidal, so immediately this tugged on our heart, and because of the goodness of our hearts, we were in the state of, what can we do? How can we help?
Now, I don't know if Jodi was actually suicidal, but it would make sense if she was, because of these horrible things that she was doing to those kids and all these other things that she was doing. Maybe it was building up, but that's to say that she actually has a soul that cares. I'm more inclined to lean towards the idea that she was using this as another manipulation tactic to get in to this family and try to separate them and have more control over them, much like she did with all of the Franke family, where she separated Ruby from Kevin, made Kevin go live on his own and figure out his issues that he was dealing with, as well as being a therapist to Chad Franke, where she had ultimate control over anything that she wanted with him. It's not too far out of the realm of possibility that she was just using this as another situation to control and manipulate. I think that's a pretty clear and concise observation. By the way, if you haven't yet, make sure you hit that subscribe button, like button, leave a comment down below, and say hello to Randall.
This friend said she's really worried because Jodi lives alone and doesn't have a lot of close relations down where she lived. And the majority of the help she could seek and friends were up near where I lived. So my husband and I offered to go, well, we offered for her to come and stay with us. And she said no. Jodi said no. No, I can't put you out. No. I can't remember if in the last video I had said that she makes something your idea. If I didn't say it, I thought it, but that's because that's how she functioned. And so she said, no, I couldn't do that to you. And because of what we thought was the severity of the problem, we offered to meet her halfway. We said, okay, that's fine. We're just going to drive halfway. And if you're there, great. If you're not there, then you'll have made us drive the whole way for nothing, and then we won't be able to help you. So we drove halfway, met up with her, and ended up driving back to our home where...
And she did say that in the last video. She said that it was one of the things that Jody did. She would make you think that these were your ideas, that she was subtly hinting at. She would play the victim and be like, oh, poor me, I can't do this, I can't do that, or whatever, until somebody suggested the idea that she was wanting them to do, making the person feel like it was actually their idea. But it was really just Jody pushing them in that direction, getting them to do what she wanted them to do, which makes sense why she would do that, because it makes the person that thinks they came up with the idea feel more invested into the situation and, in my opinion, have more blind spots to everything.
First of all, I was apprehensive. Jody's a hard person to be around. I don't know if you've gathered that by now, but she is a lot to handle, and I already knew that. I'm friends with her. I loved her for her great qualities, and was grateful for the small doses. So there was a lot of apprehension in the thought of her coming. I set that aside, thinking that this was a very loving, compassionate thing to do. Compassionate, loving way to help.
Isn't it interesting how sometimes our body knows more than we do? We get anxiety attacks or feel apprehension whenever we're put in situations that are not good for us, and we're thinking, well, maybe I should not be listening to this and show a little bit more compassion. I just find that really interesting, how your body will react and know to more information around you than you actually know with your conscious mind. A little bit off topic, but more on topic. Always try to listen to your gut. I know it's really hard to do. Something I would love to do more of as well, but those feelings you get sometimes are there for a reason.
If you had said, go get this woman, she's going to be living with you for 6 weeks, I wouldn't have. That just wasn't even in my mindset. Also, the nature of my home allows for a lot of space between people. So I also at the time had a nanny helping many hours throughout the day. So I thought that there could be a lot of separation between helping Jody and my kids being protected and helped. So it was late at night. We brought her to our home. And the next day, this friend from out of country said that she would be coming also. She would be flying in to help her dear friend Jody. There were also other friends of Jody's aware of this situation, and friends of my own aware of this situation. So I felt like I had a lot of support around me, and she was not able to alienate me and my husband the way she was with the Frankies.
So she thinks that because she had a strong support system that Jody wasn't able to go in and infiltrate and break up the family, which I find really interesting. I never really thought of that, how Jody would go in and alienate the family from each other. Thinking about it now, it's pretty obvious that she was doing that with how she did with Kevin and Ruby. And if you were somebody that had something that she wanted, it seems like that she would just do this tactic and move in and get you as close as possible and away from everybody else, which is actually terrifying. It's really hard to imagine going to a therapist or someone you're seeking help from that has what you think is solid advice, and they're creating this terrifying machination behind your back. This is someone that you put all your trust into, and they just stab you in the back, and it comes out of nowhere. You're blindsided. It sounds like a painful experience to go through.
It's not like we brought her here because I thought that my husband and I were capable of taking on somebody suicidal and solving their problems for them. I thought we were a step in a much bigger process. I learned very quickly that she was unwilling to seek professional help. Her reasons for not seeking professional help were that they're just in distortion, that they don't understand, that they'll just medicate her and then she'll be a zombie and that'll take away her agency. So you can see how she already had her own like honest, responsible, humble narrative that she had to cling to. and that we understood. So when she said they won't allow me to live honestly because I'll be drugged, or they're not honest, or I mean, she convoluted all of it to where I was like, then what do we do?
Looking back on it, of course she didn't want to seek professional help. And of course she had something to say about going to seek a professional, which is kind of funny considering the fact that she was considered a professional, a therapist. You know what? It actually makes sense that she didn't want to go see a therapist, because she was a therapist and she knew the damage that she was doing. She knew the power that she had. And she, one, didn't want the therapist to have power over her like that. And two, probably didn't want the therapist to figure out what she was doing. Three, she wanted control over the situation, because Paige offers a second solution to her getting help.
I had sought help previously in an unconventional way from somebody who does, I don't know, I'd say energy work, but it's a mix of so many different modes of healing, and it had been very beneficial to me. This woman had helped me understand that a lot of the answers to my problems I can find through my subconscious. And if I am asking my higher power for assistance, my subconscious can provide the means to heal to the answers. So we decided to go down that route. That's the one Jody was open with. I recognize now she was open because she thought it was a system she could manipulate. At the time, I had full hope that she would be able to understand what she was going through and why.
Yeah, so as you can imagine, Jody probably loved that idea, because then she could just say, well, my subconscious is telling me to do this stuff. It'll give her full control over the situation.
So she was here because she was suicidal. So I thought. And because that's what I thought I can help her. And I can help her through introducing her to this healer who can help her look at what's really going on behind these sleepless nights, these dreams. She had already confided certain things in me. And so when she was discussing with this healer, I could hear she was omitting information. I could hear that she was telling a story one way when I recall it happening a different way. So I could see she was manipulating the situation. If you were a suicidal person seeking counsel from Jody, I could only imagine that she would tell you, like, the counsel she would give you in different ways. And this was back then, and I could hear that she was not living what it was she would tell others to do. So she was the exception to the rules, the exception to her teaching.
And Paige talked about that in one of the other videos that she made, where she was saying that Jody was an exception to her rules, where she then goes on to say that that's an example of a cult, and if anybody at the top is doing that, the leader, if they're doing that, then you're probably in a cult.
We witnessed self-harm, self-mutilation, starving, binging. It was made known to me that previously in Jody's life, she had been diagnosed with schizophrenia, or what's the term? I know there's another one, dissociative identity disorder.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, Jody was at their house doing all those things, the self-harm, self-mutilation, and she was diagnosed with these things. I didn't know that. Did you know that? I think that's pretty crazy. And it does make sense, because Jody wasn't all there, and you can't be all there to be able to do these type of things. I don't think so anyways. Do you?
And I had approached Jody and said, you need a support system. We need to tell others about this. And there were some couples that were very close to us that I said, we need to call them, and we need to explain to them what's happening. And every time I had suggested a greater intervention of telling more people, I was met with, no, because then the voices in my head will get worse, and then I will this, which would end in suicide.
I mean, this just goes back to her wanting to control the situation and have everything in a close-knit group of people where she had more power. Or it really could have been voices in her head because she had schizophrenia, according to Paige. But in my opinion, that doesn't make it an excuse. Somebody should have forced her to go to a mental hospital or something to figure something out here, because if she's doing all that to herself, that's enough reason to get her somewhere else. Because that's crazy stuff.
She had even asked when she came into my home if I would take her car keys, because if she had access to them, then in the middle of the night she would drive away and cause an accident on the highway. I see how, because of me following and believing those things, she could then go to the Frankies after me and say she was kidnapped. I told you she would tell 90% truth with a 10% lie. She would say something to the effect of, she took my car keys, she wouldn't let me go anywhere, she would lock the doors, and all of that is true. But I did it because she told me to. And she told me if I didn't, she would kill herself.
That makes me feel angry, because how is Jody going to say that and then turn around and lie? Like, the machination of Jody is insane. That is if she was consciously planning all these up, but I don't know what's worse, consciously doing this or unconsciously doing it. Now, there's a little bit more to that, but she decided to end it because it was becoming a lot for her to process, going back and reliving all of that, talking about it. And like always, I hope I informed you in some way, and I'm curious what you think about this situation, so please let me know in the comments down below. And huge shout out and thank you to my Patreons. Thank you for all the support you have given me, and I will see everybody in the next video. Thank you.